Hey, my name is Laya. How are you? So, I'm kind of like creating these little journals where I kind of just talk about my life and my process of healing and growing and the journey that, I've been going down and the people I've met that have helped me grow out of, bad habits and having to break out of those bad boundaries and those unhealthy boundaries that, I had growing up. I didn't have the best family. I grew up in a very poor family, which to me isn't the problem. They didn't have very healthy ways of coping and very healthy ways of creating healthy family boundaries. And because of this, I had a hard time um, what do you call it? Making friends, at a young age. And I'm 33 now, and I've been on this healing and growing journey for the past 4 months, and or it could be 5 months now. I have major depression and schizoaffective disorder, so I got on all the right medications starting the beginning of August, I think. I think it was August, September. No, July, August, September, October. Yeah. So 4 months. So I started in July. And just let me tell you all these amazing experiences I've had of, breaking out of unhealthy molds. And I've had so many different conversations to help me realize, the pain that my mom put me in and the trauma she caused when it arrived to figuring out who I am as, a woman and who I am as a female and, you know, who I want to be as a mother. She wasn't, or she was there for me in kindergarten when my mom and dad were together, but they weren't the best couple in the world. They were extremely abusive. And my mom, protected me more than my dad, but my dad ended up going to prison and healing himself and finding God again and figuring out how to become a better version of himself when he got out, which that would be in fifth grade. But when my dad left to go to prison, my mom kind of lost her way as a mom and she wasn't really there for us. She had drug issues, she had alcohol issues, and I was really upset. I always respected her, but I was always upset at the fact that she was always a friend and hardly ever a mother figure, hardly ever a good role model to be a woman, to be feminine, to understand, what it's like to go through puberty as a female. And she was hardly ever there for that. I had to seek guidance from teachers and guidance from like my aunts and guidance from like my grandparents, and specifically my grandma. And growing up, my family kind of sheltered me, but also kind of not shunned, but they kind of left me out of a lot. My cousins wouldn't like really hang out with me because I was supposed to be the good one, and they didn't want to get me in trouble, or they thought I'd like tattletale, and I was always left out. And it, as a kid growing up, it's really sad to live with these people and to be at groups with these people, and they don't help you out. And my mom wasn't really there to help out either when all of that ended up happening. And it made me really hard to figure out boundaries, how to have healthy boundaries with friendships, how to be a healthy female. And it it kind of made me wonder, now, like back then, how it would have been. I don't know, if I had the knowledge I do now, you know, I I firmly believe in God, and I believe that His guidance has helped me out of um, unhealthy boundaries and unhealthy relationships, and He has really guided people to me to help me realize, you know, how to forgive my parents and how to forgive my mother. And I really do forgive my mother for everything that she has done and where she is at right now and where she is going and where she might hardly ever be a mother figure and always stay kind of more as a friend. She really needs to work on herself more. And it made me wonder if my mom had to have the responsibilities of taking care of me and my two younger brothers, if she would have just melted down and been non existent in our life, if she would have been potentially abusive. Um, she was hardly in our life. You know, we had our grandma as a guide when her dad wasn't around. And then when my dad came around, my dad was, a guide. But I knew more how to be a man because I hung out with my dad and my two brothers more than I knew how to be a woman. And it really affected, you know, just my thought processes. And I'm really thankful for my dad being there. I'm really thankful that my mom didn't do as much drugs as she could have or as much alcohol as she could have. And she was there for us to a certain extent. But she definitely wasn't ever there for me as female role model. And I forgive her for that. And how I ended up forgiving my mom, I just thought to myself, she is my biological mother, and I did grow up with her, and she did create these traumas within me because she was hardly there, and just her demeanor towards me at times really hurt me as a kid. Um, but I realized if I couldn't forgive the motherhood I grew up with, how did I expect myself to be up to par to being a better mother if I couldn't forgive my mother for traumatizing me in certain ways and not helping me figure out how to be a woman, how to be a mother, how to be feminine, and having to go to outer resources to figure that out. Um, and once that hit me, I should forgive her because forgiving her for the motherhood that wasn't really there would help me and her, um, would help me let go of the trauma, and it really did. And it's kind of weird, like how do you forgive somebody that traumatized you, who was emotionally abusive, who was not physically but mentally abusive? Like how could you forgive somebody for being like that and just living on? And it I'm not too sure how to explain it. I'm not going to lie. I just know that my mother now is unwell and she isn't going to be there the way that I would like her to be there for me as a mother, as an adult that is 22 years older than me at 55, should be and have a healthy mindset. And once I realized she wasn't going to be there for me and accepted that and accepted I did have to go, out search for outer resources and outer ways to become a better woman. Um, it was, my journey of healing from those traumatizations with my mom. I realized that there are other people out there that are feminine that can help me. And just learning by example, whether it is, me people watching and seeing their demeanor and act like that, or whether it's me talking to them and realizing, oh, they're such a wonderful mother. Like, that is something I would like to be within myself. And once I just realized she wasn't going to be there for me and I can look towards other people that God has guided in my life, everything just kind of lifted up. It didn't happen instantly. Well, it happened instantly to start my journey of healing and growing. But to forgive my mother fully, it wasn't. It was the beginning. And it took about a couple weeks, maybe 2 to 3 weeks, for me to fully forgive her. And I know it's really weird and it does suck, but it made me realize I'm 33 and I'm an adult. And in order for me to move forward, I really have to let go of the trauma that my mom has put on to me. And how can you let go of such traumas when you're just a kid and they're an adult? How are you supposed to let go of that? How are you supposed to forgive them? And it really hit me that my mom's 55 and she's unwell. She isn't going to be there for me for emotional support. She isn't going to be there for me for mental support. And it got to the point where I was like, it feels like I'm the one that's trying to help her get better by guiding her to the right resources to help her figure out her mental state of mind and her traumas that she needs to get over. And once, excuse me, I realized she isn't allowing herself to heal, she isn't allowing herself to grow. I felt more sadness for my mom because she's 55. She's under this impression that people keep um, uh, ruining her stuff, and she's very paranoid. And I really wish she would get the help that she needs in order for her to be a better mother. And once I realized she wasn't going to go down that journey, and because she wasn't going to go down that journey, she wasn't going to be, a mother that I would like as a good role model. And once I realized that, I felt so much sadness and I felt so much forgiveness too, because how could she not let go of those traumas to be a better person? How why isn't she allowing herself to move past those traumas to be a better person, a better role model, a better mother to me and my brothers? And it really hurt because part of me wondered, why isn't she healing so she could heal to be to have a better motherhood for her, because she's still 55. She still has years to work on herself to be a better person, but she's stuck. And once I understood that as an adult, I kind of wondered, was that the same thing that was happening as I was growing up? And wondering why she was so distant to me as a female, but never really to my brothers. She was never really there for me as a mother figure. She would always put down my emotions. And when my grandma died, she ended up telling me she wasn't going to be there for me emotionally. When I was having kind of like a mental breakdown, she said that she wasn't going to be there for me either. And, some people might think, well, why am I still there for my mother when she said she wasn't going to be there for me? But I feel sadness and forgiveness when she is in a mental state and I'm still there for her. Um, it's because she is my mother. It's a little weird to think about. Like, how can you forgive that person? I grew up with a motherhood that was hurt, and I want to cry. I grew up with a motherhood that was hurt. And even though she decided to have me as a daughter, and even though she decided to have me and my two brothers too, we're all from the same dad. And even if you aren't from the same parents, you're still, siblings. I realized she was hurting, and maybe she didn't get the work that she needed because she had three children that she had to look after, but she couldn't because she couldn't figure out the problems that she was going through. And maybe the reason why she wasn't going to be there for me is because she didn't know how to handle it. She didn't know like what to do. And I know that's more positive thinking, and there are people out there who are, extremely negative about stuff like this. But I grew up with a motherhood who went through traumas in her family and whatever, men decided to go after her for, because growing up my mom, she was a very beautiful woman. It wasn't until drugs that really ended up hurting her physical appearance, and I feel so bad for her. And it makes me wonder, as her daughter, I grew up with men always coming at me since middle school and high school, and even in my early 20s before I met my ex-husband at 22. And the funny thing, oh, he was 28 at the time. And the funny thing is, at 21, the moment I turned 21, there were men who were older that really were trying to ask me out and try to be with me. And they were like 28, 29, and I don't, maybe 30, but they were so much older than me. And I thought that I never dated them for one because they were always clients at the jobs that I worked at. So they really weren't part of my in my within my dating area because they were just clients and I didn't want to mix and match, um my job and a clientele in case it didn't work out right. So I didn't date them because I had, those morals and principles. But it makes me wonder if me being at 21, if we weren't, and I just met them on the street, would I have dated them? Because that age gap isn't really a healthy age gap. Um, but yeah, and it really made me realize that um, just the traumas that my mother ended up going and what she went through. Did she go through similar things where men just used her or men hurt her? And I know actually that men ended up abusing her. She did say that she was in an abusive relationship where the man would hit her in the stomach and never the face or anything like that because he didn't want to leave marks and get in trouble. And it makes me really sad that my mom ended up going through these traumas as a young woman herself figuring herself out. And I wonder if that played a part in how she perceived herself. And I know my grandpa wasn't there for 9 years, so she didn't have a dad and from when she was 9 to 16 or 17, and he came back, and they didn't really discuss why he was back, but he was back. And I realized she just had so many traumas, that she probably wasn't able to get over in order for her to be the best version of herself. And back then mental illness wasn't really something people talked about. They always ended up putting others down. And once I, you know, ended up having those thoughts and those emotions, it made me realize my mom really needs healing. And, hopefully now that I am an adult, even though I am the child, I can help her because I was grown to believe that going to therapy, talking to a psychologist, talking to a psychiatrist does help you become a better person, you know, for yourself and how to heal out of those traumas. And I do believe in God. So I also believe that God has played a huge part in guiding me to these people so I can become a better version of myself. And one of the other reasons, that started tying loose ends of my journey healing and growing for my mother, because there was a time I was within those 2 to 3 weeks that I saw I was starting to hate my mother. I would talk about her and I talked poorly about her because she wasn't there. And it was really frustrating and so it was frustrating and so stressful to figure out who I am on this journey of healing and growing, and then also to help her figure out who she is. And it was really hurting, and I was really being so angry at her for not being there and so angry at for her, not helping herself out now. And I had a conversation with this female. She was Pentecostal. I'm Catholic, and I'm not saying all Pentecostal women think this way, but we were having a polite argument where she was saying she really hated her mother, and she wished that people who have mental illnesses ended up getting hysterectomy. And I have two mental illnesses. I have major depression and schizoaffective disorder, and that really hurt me because I was like, I don't think I deserve to have a hysterectomy because I have a mental illness. And she was saying this because she grew up with a mom that was abusive. And I told her, I understand. I grew up with an abusive mother as well. Um, and she said that she just hated her dad, or not her dad, her mother so much that, she wished she had a hysterectomy. And to me, I saw so much hate and so much unforgiveness and then so much unhealing and so much tangling of this person becoming a better person. But if she let go and understood her mother needed help too, because she was probably young and just needed help and needed guidance, but she had to put her children first. So, because she had to put her children first, she neglected herself first, which in return just ended up becoming a very negative experience for all parties involved. And I got really sad, and I realized as I was telling her and giving her advice, I really should take my own advice, and I really did. And in that moment, my 2 to 3 weeks of figuring out my my traumas and my emotions and my my leading down a path of hate with my mom just resolved, and I was so sad. I was just so sad for her. I was so sad for her mom, and I realized I didn't want to feel like that towards my mom. I didn't want to be so hateful still in my mid 20s, and on her mom's deathbed, she asked for forgiveness from the daughter, and the daughter said she did forgive her. Her words said that, but her body language, her tone of voice, her facial expressions just said otherwise, that she did not forgive her mom. And I really wish that she would look back and see her mom needed just as much help as she does now. And hopefully, she does come across that and forgives her, because that's the motherhood that she grew up with. And if she doesn't forgive the motherhood who she grew up with, how does she expect to forgive herself for whatever traumas she ended up creating for her children and her family, for the people around her? Because she told me she was divorced twice, which is what I'm not judging her for. I'm judging her for more of the actions of potentially what could have led to the divorce if it was her fault. And I feel like if she would have let go of the trauma and realized how sad and so much help her mother needed, she would have been able to figure out that she needs to work on herself too. Because if the motherhood she grew up is tainted, then I feel like somewhere within us, ours is tainted. And it not tainted in the sense that it could ever be healed, because it can be healed. It just takes steps to forgive the person that helped bring you into this life. And once that ends up happening, you'll realize, how much weight is lifted off your shoulders, and you could truly start healing and becoming um, the mother or the father that you truly want to be. So for anyone out there who is listening to this, I'm not trying to say that you're a horrible person. You're not. Just let go of the trauma you have with your mother or your father or both, because it is one once you do, you'll start to go down a healing of growth and journey, and start to figure out who you truly are and who you want as an adult, your motherhood and fatherhood to be. Do you want it to reflect how you grew up with your mom and dad, or do you want it um, to be a better version? And letting go and forgiving is something that I've realized is really helpful in that. So with that being said, I hope this perspective has really helped you figure out your own journey with your own parents, and I hope that you can forgive them, um, and hope for the better for them, but also for yourself. With that, have a great day.